All right, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and subscribers, welcome to another edition of the Coach's Desk. And in studio, we have world-renowned sports journalist, Ricardo Chambers. And we'll be having a little chat on some issues where sports is concerned. So I want you to enjoy this interview. Definitely, I'm reminding you to subscribe, share, and like, and become a part of the Coach's Desk family. Ricardo, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Coach. How are you doing?
I am doing pretty well. And you're staying safe in this pandemic?
Well, I am trying my very best to stay safe. As you know, you can do all the things that you're told to do, and it's still no guarantee that you'll be completely safe. But I'm trying to do as much as possible so that I can stay safe.
All right, that sounds good. Yes, we have to follow the guidelines of what the government put in place as best as possible. All right, so let's jump right into it, Ricardo. My first question to you is that you are one of Jamaica's top sports commentators and a presenter. Can you tell the viewers, how did you get involved in this business?
It's actually quite interesting. So I'm from a place called Jeffreytown in St. Mary, where I grew up. Let's just say where I live, we didn't have electricity. So one, we listened to a lot of radio. And secondly, we were cricket crazy. So my cousins and I, and my brothers as well, would play a lot of cricket. And because we also listened a lot of cricket, part of us playing was that we would all do commentary. So playing a game of cricket in Jeffreytown St. Mary wasn't good if you didn't have commentators. And that's essentially how I started. I mean, pretty much everybody in my family who played, from my brothers to my cousins, would do the same. And I guess I just ended up being good at it. And then when I moved to Kingston, and I realized that this is something that could actually become a career, then I started moving more towards it. I remember when I was probably in grade 7 at Calabar, I actually skipped school one Friday so I could stay home and listen to regional cricket on the radio. And I called into the lunchtime show, and a couple of the hosts were Andrew Mason from Barbados and Mark Nita, former Jamaica batsman, and they said, yo, you know, this little youth sound like him have a little sense. They spoke to my mother, and they actually started taking me to cricket matches and put me on the radio. And in a way, as they say, the rest is history.
Yes, the rest is history, definitely. And I must commend you. You have been a very good commentator. It's interesting to watch, to listen to you on the airwaves. Of course, you know that Champs was cancelled this year, the Eastern Boys and Girls Champs, for the 2020 year, this year rather. So what are your views on that cancellation?
You know, initially when it happened, I thought like a lot of the coaches that maybe the decision was a little bit premature, that maybe the organizers could have waited a little bit longer before they made the final decision. You know, speak to a few more of the Yeah, sorry about that. So I felt they could have done that. But you know, they say hindsight is 2020 vision. And when I look back at it and I think to myself, no, the correct decision was made. It would have been sought to postpone the event. I mean, it could not have been held on the day that it was originally scheduled. My thinking initially, it could have been postponed and then probably held around the week that you would have had the pen relays, because the government had already recommended that no Jamaican go to the pen relays. But just looking back at it now, I don't think it would have been possible. The fact is, you would have been asking numbers, I mean, hundreds of students across the country to be camping, to still be training at a time when we were still uncertain as to a lot of things relating to the virus. We were uncertain about the numbers that were in the country. And I mean, it really could have been a disaster if they had gone forward with it. So yes, I mean, really, really tough on the athletes, especially those final year athletes who were still looking to put together solid performances so they could get better offers, better scholarship offers, some of them just to get offers. So very, very tough on them. But I think at the end of the day, even though I will admit it might not have seemed that way initially, the correct decision was made, and made at the correct time as well, I would say.
Yes, Ricardo, I definitely agree with you. A little bit premature how it was done. However, in hindsight, definitely it was the correct decision.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward. Some persons came about with this virtual champs idea. And someone consulted you to be one of the commentators of the virtual champs. You know,
Yeah.
and it was very interesting. You had persons on the edge of their seat. Elaborate on that, Ricardo.
All right, so there's this youngster from St. Elizabeth Technical called Damon Dunkley, who I met while I was announcing at the States Invitational. And he messaged me on Instagram and said that he wanted to do a virtual champs. And essentially what they would do is do commentary on, well, not every race, but a lot of the races at the specific time of day that they would have been held if you actually had champs. And I thought it was just a brilliant idea. I said yes right away. I had absolutely no issues in saying yes. But it was really Damon's idea, and he did 99% of the work. He put the heat sheets together, everything, and he sent them to me, and I just did a couple of the races. After the first day, I think, when I did a couple of the races, I sent one of them to my colleague Donald Oliver, and he thought it was a fantastic idea as well, and he wanted to get in on it. And we just felt that at the time people were so down because there was no champs, and we just thought this was a great way to have people smiling, and people really took to it. I mean, it was amazing. It took off a lot more than we thought it would, and people just kept asking for more and more and more. It got to a stage where I started wondering if I would be able to deliver based on the requests that were coming in. I mean, as I said, we started just wanting to do a couple of races, and then requests started coming in after request after request after request. And yeah, it became pretty difficult after a while to keep up. But yeah, it was really, really good. It was really, really good. And we were all happy, Damon, Donald, and everybody else who was involved, that we were able to put smiles on the faces of champs loving people, not just in Jamaica, but I mean, right across the world.
Trust me, Ricardo, it was very, very, very good. It was a highlight. I'm involved in a coaches group, and persons were amazed by the commentary. Persons were even wondering if champs was actually being held. So it really brought us back to the euphoria of being a champ. So definitely it was a good one. And I know I couldn't have you here on the coach's desk and not ask you that question. All right.
Yeah, before you move on, one of the things that we really tried to do was to make it as real as possible. So again, you use the athletes, you use the performances throughout the season, and you kind of use the overall expectations to do the race. I mean, how you think it might have gone. And I think that is what kind of made it special, because it seemed so real. Maybe if you took up one of those races, or if you listen to one of those races next year, you might think it actually happened. Or in 20 years, when people read that champs was cancelled in 2020, if they hear one of those recordings, then they're going to be a little bit confused.
Trust me. It was excellent. It was excellent. Now, I want you, Ricardo, to tell the people who would have been your winner in the matchups? Ashanti versus Kevona, Bastiana versus Pinnock. And a matter of fact, was there any other matchup that you were looking forward to? Just share with us.
All right, let's start with the Kevona versus Ashanti. For me, I thought Kevona would have won the double. I think clearly there are a few things that we didn't know about Ashanti leading up. Remember, after the Camperdown Classic, she had been dormant for a little while. She did run a 100 just the day before Champs was actually cancelled. But I think Kevona was in great shape, and I think she would have been very difficult to beat. And the virtual race that we did tried to capture that. But I also think that it would have been a great race, because I really do believe that Coach Corey Bennett would have gotten Ashanti more ready for the task at hand. But I feel that Kevona would have gotten the better of her in the 100, and I feel like it would have even been a little bit more comfortable at 200, but I think they would have been two great races. As for the 110 hurdles, a little bit difficult. I mean, one, again, Vashawn Vasiana got injured at the Youngster Goldsmith Classic, and we weren't sure what type of shape he would actually show up in. There were rumors as well about Wayne Pinnock not being at 100%, but I would say if both of them turned up at 100%, I would give the nod to Wayne Pinnock. Although again, I think it would have been a fabulous race. Two athletes who know how to win, two athletes who have been doing great from Class 3. In the case of Wayne Pinnock, I think over the last 2 seasons, he's found a new bout of confidence, not just the confidence, but I think having, for example, the World Under-20s, gotten a bronze medal there, breaking the champs record in 2019 in a massive race, he would have been difficult to beat. I think at his best, Vashawn, would have pushed him all the way and made for another great race. But Kevona and Pinnock, those would have been my picks for those two races.
And the follow-up, any other matchups that you were looking forward to? You're not getting away from that one.
Let me think about that one. Let's see. I'm a big fan of the field events, especially the long jump. My younger brother actually made a long jump final at Champs Dwayne Chambers. And so that Class 1 long jump was of great interest to me, largely because I don't think Wayne Pinnock was in the form in the long jump he was in 2019. He hadn't done as many events. And Jordan Turner out of Calabar had been showing fabulous form. Right. I'd gotten into the 770s and had been consistent throughout the season. And when it comes to the jumps, I tend to favor the person who is in form, because I think it's difficult to just show up on a particular day if you haven't had the reps and just perform big. So I think it would have been difficult in that event for Wayne. So that's one I would have been looking forward to for sure. I'm a big fan of the 400 hurdles. The girls' 400 hurdles, I really wanted to see what Lashana Graham out of Eden Island would have delivered. I think she could have challenged Ristanana Tracy's record. The competitiveness of the Class 2 boys 400 hurdles as well. And the Class 1 boys 400 hurdles. Yeah, just a few of the events. One of the things I think about Champs 2020 that we have missed out on is that I think so many of the fields were deep and would have been extremely competitive, and it was extremely difficult to pick a winner or to pick a straight top 4. I think in previous years, certainly in the last 5-6 years, most of the events you can comfortably pick a top 3, top 4. It might not have been easy to pick the order necessarily, but just in terms of picking who would be in that top 3 or top 4, a lot easier than 2020. I found it a lot more difficult to pick 3 or 4 people clear in most events. In most events, you had 7, 8, 9, and sometimes 10 people that you're just not sure on any given day which of them would have been in the top 4. And I think that is one of the things that would have made Champs 2020 great, and one of the things that we have definitely missed out on.
Definitely. I certainly agree with you. Now, what I want you to do for us, Ricardo, straight off the bat, give me a top 3 girls, top 3 boys.
Wow. Let me try and remember, because I actually did this. So on the boys' side, you want me to give you my upset prediction, or you want me to give you...
Give me your prediction. Whatever it is, if it is upset or if it is direct, give me a prediction. Top 3 girls.
So on the boys' side, yeah, on the boys' side, Kingston College ahead of Jamaica College ahead of Calabar. I don't think, though, it would have been as comfortable for KC as many people thought, but I think it was Jamaica College poised to really challenge them. I really do believe that JC had the team to push them all the way, and it was a matter of how the JC athletes dealt with those close situations. Those situations that I spoke about where you have 7, 8, 9, 10 athletes all in with a shot of being in the top 4. If the JC athletes, especially in Class 1, came up big in those events, then I think they would have had a fabulous chance of winning Champs. On the girls' side, Edwin Allen, St. Jago, Heidel.
Okay. All right, I hear you. I have I have
I feel
other
like you have a
ideas.
different top 3.
I have other ideas on the girls' side, but I will reserve my comment. Huh?
Like St. Jago being at the top.
All right, let's move on to the next question. The Olympics got postponed.
Yeah.
And many other sporting events. Did the World Athletics chief made the correct decision?
Well, as it relates to the Olympics, yes. And the same explanation as with Champs, you're talking about thousands of people, including the various countries across the world to compete in a multi-sport event. That's going to be difficult to control. And when you have a virus that is transmitted in the way the coronavirus is, it would not have been safe for anybody. So the right decision was made for sure. The real question is whether they took too long to make that decision, the International Olympic Committee and the Tokyo organizers in relation to the Olympic Games. But yes, the right decision was made. They were eventually forced, of course, because countries like Canada and Australia, pretty much said, we are not going to go because this does not look safe, and really forced the hand of the organizers, including the International Olympic Committee. So right decision made. And I think it also took a burden off the athletes, because it must have been difficult. You're training, you're not sure if the event is going to happen. You have to deal with all the issues that come with the coronavirus, because remember, the athletes are not exempt from all the issues. They have to take all the precautions as well. We talk about working from home, which a lot of us can do, and yes, they maybe can do some amount of training from home, but not the type of training that will make them ready to perform well at an Olympic Games. And all of that must have been weighing on their minds. They all have families. I remember when the issue probably reached peak, and I was to do an interview with a particular athlete on the Commentator's podcast. The interview was cancelled on the day of it because a family member of his had gotten the coronavirus, and he just didn't feel in the frame of mind to talk about it at that stage. So the athletes have to deal with it from various angles as well. And so it would have been difficult for them to be trying to prepare for an Olympic Games, the biggest spectacle of their lives, and at the same time having to deal with everything that comes with the coronavirus. So the right decision, in my opinion, was definitely made. And yes, there's still a possibility that we will have a couple of track and field meets this year, but it's different preparing for regular track meets than preparing for the biggest stage in sport and the biggest stage for and what these athletes have been working for their entire lives. So definitely, without a doubt, the right decision made.
But you made mention of some sporting events, or some meets rather, might be on track late season. I'm wondering if that's a good projection going forward.
Well, whether or not they're going to happen is another thing. But at this stage, the fact is they are still on the cards. They are still being negotiated. And the truth is there is no template for how to handle the coronavirus or how to handle a pandemic of this nature. And so because of that, it's almost a wait and see, because nobody really knows what is going to happen in the next month or two. And so everything is about projections. And when these ideas, I think, would have been put on the table, it would have been projected that, okay, by August, we might be able to have sport, or by August, we might be in a better position to figure out how we have sport with the coronavirus, because that's a real possibility that we now have to start thinking about how we go forward with our lives as normal as possible with the coronavirus around. There is no guarantee that this is going to go away anytime soon, but world leaders, politically and sporting wise, all now have to be thinking about how we control or ensure that as fewer people as possible get infected with this coronavirus, but that life also goes on. Because remember, at the end of the day, we have a world economy, and with each country, they have their individual economies to think about, because people have to survive, people have to live, people have to eat. And the longer we have all these lockdowns across the world, is the greater the possibility that we are going to have people becoming broke. And once that starts to happen, then we're looking at another problem, and possibly a bigger problem. So we are probably at the stage now where we have to think about how we go about our lives as normal as possible with the coronavirus around, because we don't know how long this is going to be around, at least not at this stage. And life has to go on, and we have to live. You have to go to work. You have to earn a living. If you're not earning a living, if your savings get depleted, then what? What do you do?
Definitely. Some big points there, Ricardo. Very, very salient points there. And from what I know about a pandemic, it normally takes a while, 18 months up to 3 years. And this one, it's a novel one. So it's a lot of uncertainty where this virus is concerned. All right, moving on real quick. Since this season has been a dormant season, who are the ones to watch for next Olympics, which is in a year's time? And a follow-up to that, Ricardo. What are the likelihood of some of our older athletes making the Olympics team?
Yeah, so let's start with the older ones. Thanks for that escape. Let's start with the older ones. So I think the likes of Asafo Paul, if he still has thoughts of going to a major, Veronica Campbell-Brown might find it tough. Who else can I think about in terms of older athletes? I mean, just because I don't think that extra year out might help them. Those two specifically, because their bodies haven't really held up in recent years, and it might be tough. It might really be tough for them, because the new generation is coming strong, and the new generation has one more year to be stronger, fitter, faster. And for those two, I see it being extremely tough. And I say that even though I'll say, for example, Veronica is probably my all-time favorite. As for the youngsters, Breanna Williams. No, she had that setback in 2019, but had a very good indoor season 2020, and by all indications looked in a position to pick up where she left off. I love the chances of somebody like a Kiara Grant. Let's see what she does once she's out of the university system, which I think she should be at the end of this year. Let's see what she decides going forward. Love her chances. Kevona Davis will now be in university with a coach I rate highly, Eldrick Florial. So let's see what he does with her. On the men's side, and specifically in the sprints, I like the chances of Wasim Williams. Not many people will remember him from Jamaica College, but always had talent, always did pretty well, but just couldn't stay fit for long enough. But whenever he was fit, was always a force. Ran 10 flat in 2019. I thought had a great chance to be in the top 3 and even win the nationals in 2019. I thought he got a little bit nervous in that final and didn't run a great race, but I think he's a real talent, and once fit is going to be a force. I felt like someone like Kamar Bailey Cole was really focused for 2020. If he can retain that focus for 2021, he might be a force again as well, and stay fit, of course, because that's been a problem for him. So those are some of the athletes I'd be looking at from a Jamaican standpoint for 2021. Yeah, 2021.
But Ricardo, I heard you mention the likes of Kevona Davis, Kiara Grant, Breanna Williams, but you somehow left out a quarter of that quartet in Ashanti Moore. Do you have any, and you don't see any prospect for her?
Well, part of the reason I left out Ashanti Moore is the truth is at this stage, I don't know where she is going. And I usually reserve comment what I expect from an athlete until I know exactly where they are going. Because part of it is with certain camps, there are trends in terms of how long it takes an athlete to come through, how long it takes an athlete to transition, if they even transition at all, depending on where they go. And because of that, until I know exactly where she's headed, then I'll reserve comment on what I expect from her in the next 2 to 3 years.
All right, interesting. Final question, Ricardo. What will sports be like post-COVID?
I hope it's not like what is going to be happening on June 11, that 2,000 meters race between the Inga Britt then it's going to be tough, because it's all good and well in this time to have the virtual events, to have individuals being in different areas and competing. It's all good and well, but it's not the same. It's not the same as being in a stadium where you have a full crowd and people cheering, and the performers, being the athletes, being pushed on by that, being motivated by that, performances improving because of that. And so if sport is not going to be like that, and it's going to be like some of the models we've seen in the last month or so, then I don't know. All I can say is that it's not going to be the same.
Not going to be the same, my friend. I tell you, I can't even imagine it. I'm not sure if you are, if you have watched any of the Bundesliga games.
Yeah, I was just about to make that point. I actually saw a story where they wanted to put sex dolls in the stadium to cheer. Maybe that would have worked. because at least you would have some sort of noise. But um, yeah, it's not the same. It's not very exciting when you're competing in front of an empty stadium.
It's definitely not going to be the same. Ricardo, it was really a pleasure having you here on the coach's desk with your host, Kevion Minze. Any final words that you want to say?
Well, just thank you very much for having me. I am really happy that everybody enjoyed Virtual Champs 2020 because we definitely enjoyed doing it. And of course, you know, I will do this is nothing for me to do for the coaches because I call upon you guys quite a lot. I get a lot of my information from the coaches, so I'm very happy to do this for the coaches, and I look forward to continue to work well with all the coaches across Jamaica.
Thank you, man. Viewers and subscribers, that's it. We just had Ricardo Chambers here on the coach's desk. Continue to support the coach's desk by subscribing, share, and liking our videos. Have a blessed one.